The day was warm and peaceful as the sun bathed the park in a golden light, a perfect day for a quiet observation. Zarks stood among the trees, watching the human children play their games. The alien leader had traveled far from their homeworld to Earth on a secret mission to assess the potential threat posed by humanity. They had already conquered countless planets across the galaxy, but this species was different. Its people had long been known to resist all attempts of subjugation. Their records showed human conflict and survival instincts were far beyond the expected level of primitive creatures. No alien species had yet encountered a race so stubborn and unpredictable, and Zarks was here to see it firsthand. As the alien watched the children run about in circles, they found the whole scene strangely amusing. The humans were small, fragile, and quick to laughter, but what struck Zarks was the game itself. It was a simple game of tag, the kind of game one would expect from children, yet the speed and agility with which they played was astounding. The kids moved with an effortless coordination, shifting and darting between each other in ways that defied logic. To Zarks, it was chaotic, but oddly purposeful. There was one child who stood out among the rest, a boy with dark hair and a mischievous grin. He moved differently, more fluidly than the others. His steps were calculated, his eyes scanned the others with the intensity of a predator watching for weakness, yet he never showed any sign of aggression. It was as if he was orchestrating the game without ever speaking. Zarks found themselves intrigued by the boy's movements and wondered why a simple game of tag had such an effect on their mind. Zarks thought back to the many species they had encountered, all of whom were bound by their instincts and survival mechanisms. None of them had displayed this kind of intelligence so early in their development. It wasn't the game itself that caught the alien leader's attention, it was the sheer adaptability of these humans. Their ability to shift between strategies on the fly was beyond anything Zarks had ever seen. Zarks's analytical mind clicked into overdrive. The alien leader had to understand what made humans tick. What was it that allowed them to function in such chaotic situations? What hidden power lay beneath their seemingly insignificant games? There was no denying it now. There was something special about this species, something worth investigating further, and so the decision was made. Zarks would follow this boy in his game and see where it led. The alien leader did not expect to find anything of value at first, just a momentary distraction in their long conquest, but there was something in the way the children moved and fought that hinted at a deeper connection, something primal and yet sophisticated, at once a power far beyond anything Zarks could have predicted. And the more they watched, the more they understood this was no ordinary game. It was a lesson, a training ground for something more. Zarks stepped back into the shadows, blending once more with the landscape, but their gaze never left the children, the boy who led them, the boy who seemed to understand the rules of the universe better than any adult. The alien leader was about to learn a truth they would never forget. The more Zarks observed the children, the more they became fascinated by the rhythm of their play, the way each child moved with purpose, yet without fear. It was as if they were in constant motion of improvisation, a dance between instinct and thought. The children didn't just run from one another, they anticipated each other's movements. Each time one child sprinted in a new direction, it wasn't random, it was a deliberate maneuver, a test of their ability to outsmart their peers. Zarks's eyes locked on the boy Liam. His movements were fluid, like water flowing through a maze. His path was unpredictable, yet calculated at every turn. It was clear to the alien leader that Liam was not only a participant in this game, he was the one shaping it, guiding the others with subtle shifts in his position without uttering a word. It was almost as if the other children were following his lead without realizing it. They adapted to his pace, to his rhythm. Zarks watched as Liam effortlessly dodged one child's grasp by changing direction. Just before the other could reach him, then another child tried to set a trap by blocking his way, only to find that Liam anticipated this and spun out of the way before they could react. It was almost as if the boy could read the minds of the others, predicting what they would do next with uncanny precision. This wasn't a simple game of tag, it was a contest of minds, of wills and strategy. The alien leader began to feel a sense of unease. They had come to Earth with a clear objective, to assess whether humanity was a threat, but now they wondered if something deeper was at play. Could this be what the human race was capable of? Could the entire species hold this kind of ability to adapt and survive? Zarx's mind raced as they continued to observe the children, their eyes narrowing with each move. They made the way they worked together to trap another child in a circle of laughter, how they quickly adjusted their strategies in response to each other's actions. The concept of teamwork among them was not just a social bond, it was a form of communication, a bond stronger than mere words. Liam's instincts were particularly fascinating. He didn't just act based on what he saw, he acted based on what others were about to do. The way he led the group with an almost supernatural sense of timing made Zarx question how much of humanity's intelligence was instinctual and how much was learned in the moment from simple play. Zarx leaned in closer, still hidden in the shadows, but now fully focused on Liam as he weaved through the game with ease. The alien leader had seen many species that prided themselves on their strength or their technology, but this was different. These children were not simply reacting to a situation, they were creating their own fate, shaping the game around them, making decisions faster than their opponents could even comprehend. The alien leader knew then that these games were far more than just child's play. They were a glimpse into something much deeper, something that could be far more dangerous than anything Zarx had imagined. What if humanity's strength was not in their ability to wield weapons or to dominate, but in their ability to think and adapt on the fly? What if this capacity for quick thinking and rapid decision-making made them an unstoppable force, an unseen weapon that could change the course of a battle or even a war? Zarx could no longer dismiss the human race as a primitive species to be wiped away quickly. No, what was unfolding before them was something far more complex, and the alien leader had only begun to scratch the surface. Zarx could no longer stay in the shadows, merely an observer of the children's playful antics. What had begun as a simple curiosity about humanity's strange rituals had blossomed into a deep fascination. The alien leader's mind raced, trying to dissect the patterns unfolding before them. What they were witnessing wasn't just a game. It was a reflection of a species that could think beyond the immediate, adapt in real time, and make decisions that would have far-reaching consequences. The following day, Zarx decided to test the children, to escalate their game and see if these instincts of adaptation and strategy could withstand a real challenge. The alien leader used their advanced technology to subtly alter the environment. They made the park feel unfamiliar, distorting the landscape. The ground began to shift, walls of trees began to close in and open unexpectedly, and the once predictable boundaries of the playground started to warp. The children were now playing in a world not unlike a labyrinth of their own making. Zarx watched closely, wondering if the children's carefree nature would falter once they were forced to deal with a more complex, unpredictable scenario. As they expected, the children were momentarily confused by the changes in their environment. But it wasn't chaos. It was something else entirely. The children quickly adjusted, forming groups and immediately adapting to the shifting challenges. They didn't panic. They thought. They communicated in a language far simpler than words, but somehow everyone understood what needed to be done. Liam, at the center of it all, became the linchpin of the group's success. He gave silent cues, guiding the others as the terrain morphed around them. The other children followed him as though they'd practiced this before, even though they hadn't. He led them through narrow spaces between trees, under bridges of fallen branches, and around obstacles that were continuously shifting. They didn't just move through the changing landscape. They adapted to it, using it to their advantage. What had once been a simple game of tag now felt like a survival scenario, and yet the children thrived. Zarx felt a chill run through their core, a sensation that spoke of the raw potential within these humans. It was as if their minds were designed for this kind of environment, a world that changed constantly, that demanded constant adaptation. What the alien leader had dismissed as childish behavior was now revealed as something far more sophisticated. These children were already learning how to survive in a world that offered no guarantees, no permanence. They were training for an unpredictable future, one where only those who could think, adapt, and work together would prevail. The game continued for hours, but what fascinated Zarks even more was that the children didn't stop playing. They didn't grow tired. The more obstacles they faced, the more creative they became. They'd form alliances, break them, and reform them. They outwitted the shifting park's design with teamwork, humor, and an almost uncanny ability to predict what others would do, as if they had spent their entire lives preparing for the chaos of the world. Zarks was beginning to realize that humanity's greatest asset wasn't their technology, wasn't their strength. It was their minds, their capacity to navigate uncertainty with creativity and resilience. What appeared to be a simple game was actually a window into the essence of what it meant to be human. These children, with their smiles and laughter, were learning something that many adult species never understood: how to survive not by strength alone, but by learning to think on their feet and adapt to whatever the universe threw their way. The alien leader had to admit it. They were captivated. They had underestimated humanity and their true power. This was no longer just an observation. It was a lesson, one Zarks couldn't ignore. And with each passing moment, the alien realized just how dangerous this species could be. Not because of their weapons or armies, but because of their ability to evolve and overcome the impossible. Zarks now had a new mission: to understand the full depth of this power, to see if humanity could wield it against an enemy as formidable as the alien empire itself. The days that followed were a blur of intrigue for Zarks. They spent every moment observing, analyzing, and attempting to understand the phenomenon that was unfolding in front of them. The alien leader had never encountered a species like humanity before, so full of potential, and yet so seemingly naive. The simple nature of their play, of all things, seemed to unlock a layer of depth that Zarks had never considered. What began as a curiosity now felt like an obsession. Zarks had to know more. Unable to contain their curiosity, Zarks made a calculated decision. They decided to approach the boy, the one who seemed to lead the others with an uncanny precision, the one who appeared to be the key to understanding humanity's strength. Disguised as a harmless human, Zarks appeared before Liam one afternoon, standing at the edge of the park as the game unfolded. Liam, always the leader, was slightly wary but not frightened. He had the sharp eyes of a child who had learned to read the world around him. He had no idea that an alien life form was watching him, nor did he sense the immense power that lay beneath his own actions. For him, this was just another game. But Zarks knew that the boy held the answers to questions far bigger than anything he could comprehend. "Hey there," Zarks spoke softly, stepping into the clearing where Liam was sitting on a nearby bench, watching the others play. Liam glanced up, sensing the unusual presence, but gave no sign of fear. He was used to strange adults approaching him in the park, after all. "Hi," Liam said casually, his voice full of curiosity, but not hesitance. Zarks was impressed. "I've been watching you and your friends," Zarks began, their voice measured and calm. "You're very good at this game. You seem to be leading them." Liam shrugged, clearly not thinking of it as anything extraordinary. "It's just tag," he replied. "We all take turns being it, but I like to make it interesting. You gotta be quick, and you gotta think about what the other kids will do next." He smiled, showing a bit of pride in his simple explanation. Zarks raised an eyebrow, intrigued by the boy's words. "You don't just run and hide. You're thinking ahead." Liam's grin widened. "Yeah, exactly. You can't win if you don't think about what the other person will do, right? If you just keep running, you'll never get away. It's about knowing where they'll go before they do." Zarks paused, allowing the boy's words to sink in. There it was again, the brilliance that had been visible in the game. Liam didn't just follow his instincts. He led his team by reading the game, predicting the moves of others, and acting on those predictions in real time. The alien leader was beginning to understand. This wasn't just play. This was a demonstration of strategy, of survival. It was an exercise in the art of thinking ahead, anticipating danger, and using what you had in the moment to your advantage. "You know," Zarks continued, "What you're doing here, this game, is more than just fun. You're teaching yourself how to make decisions on the spot, how to handle unpredictable situations. You know how to react to what others do before they do it." Liam tilted his head, processing the words. "Yeah, I guess so. You have to think fast. Otherwise, someone might tag you. I think I do it without thinking about it too much. It's just natural." Zarks couldn't help but feel a chill as they realized just how true the boy's words were. For most species, survival was a learned skill. But for humanity, it seemed that this kind of quick, instinctive decision-making was as natural as breathing. The alien leader could see it now, not just in the boy, but in all the children who played these games. There was something in their minds that allowed them to constantly reevaluate, adapt, and adjust in ways that far surpassed the expectations of other species. Zarks studied Liam for a moment longer, searching for the right words. "You're not just playing. You're training without even knowing it. You're preparing yourself for anything, for any challenge that might come. You and your friends are learning the art of survival through play." Liam looked thoughtful, his small brow furrowing. "I never thought of it like that. I guess it's true. We're always trying to outsmart each other, trying to keep up with what's happening." Zarks nodded slowly, more certain than ever that they were witnessing something extraordinary. It wasn't just the game itself, it was the mindset that these children had already developed. They had learned, through their own play, how to stay 2 steps ahead of their environment, how to adapt to ever-changing situations. If this was the foundation of humanity's strength, then perhaps it was more formidable than Zarks had first realized. The alien leader had only begun to scratch the surface, but the realization was dawning. Humans were not as they seemed. They were more than capable of surviving anything that might come their way. And with every game, every shift in strategy, they were only getting stronger. Zarks left the park that day with one question on their mind. What other hidden talents did humanity possess? Zarks could no longer pretend that the game the children were playing was anything but a window into something far more profound than they had originally believed. Each encounter with the children, each observation, only deepened the alien leader's understanding. Liam, the boy who had first caught their attention, had unwittingly revealed just how much humans were capable of with so little. It wasn't just the way he moved in the game, it was the way he thought, the way his mind operated. It was strategic, rapid, and always adaptive. Days passed, and Zarks continued to follow Liam and the other children, never making their presence known. But now, it was no longer just about observing their games. It was about uncovering the key to humanity's survival. There was something deeper at play in these children's actions, something that even the alien leader was struggling to fully grasp. Zarks soon realized that what they were witnessing wasn't just an individual talent, it was a collective power. The children's ability to synchronize, to shift strategies without words, to adapt and counter what was thrown at them, wasn't learned behavior alone. It was instinctive, a mental framework that bound them together as a cohesive whole, despite the chaos of the game. What appeared as simple tag was, in truth, a dance of survival, and every child involved was part of it. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low in the sky, Zarks decided to intervene, just to test how far this natural talent extended. With a subtle adjustment of their technology, the alien leader created a new challenge for the children, an obstacle that could not be avoided by mere running. It wasn't just the shifting environment this time. It was an unknown, a completely new element introduced to the game. The ground beneath them suddenly gave way, and a thick mist filled the air, obscuring everything but the silhouettes of the players. The fog was dense, swirling with the perfect combination of disorientation and pressure. The children, caught off guard, froze for a brief moment. Then, as if some unseen signal passed between them, the game resumed. The mist, thick and disorienting, became a challenge to overcome, a new obstacle to navigate. Zarks marveled as they watched the children act. At first, There was a flurry of confusion as some of them tried to escape the fog, but then Liam's voice rang out above the haze. His instructions were simple but clear, his tone carrying authority despite the chaos. Without missing a beat, the children gathered together, forming a new strategy to deal with the fog. They didn't scatter in panic. They formed a tight circle, using their hands to signal where they were, where they could go. In the heart of the fog, they moved as one, not relying on sight, but on the subtle cues of each other's movements. The children worked with a silent understanding, anticipating each other's next move before it even happened. Zarks couldn't help but be impressed. The alien leader had expected fear, chaos, even disarray, but what they saw instead was coordination, trust, and adaptability. Each child, from the youngest to the oldest, contributed to the strategy with no hesitation, no questioning of what needed to be done. It was a perfect display of teamwork, of a species capable of forming unspoken bonds and operating as a unified whole in the face of an unfamiliar challenge. Zarks stepped closer, hidden in the shadows of the mist, unsure of what to make of what they were seeing. Humanity was proving itself, once again, in ways the alien leader had not anticipated. It was as if the human mind had been honed for challenges exactly like this, unpredictable, unfamiliar, ever-changing. In every test, humans found ways to adapt, to survive, to overcome. Even the obstacles that Zarks threw in their path seemed to be part of the human's evolutionary skill set. It was becoming clear to Zarks that humanity was not just a species of individual strength or technological prowess. No, their true power lay in their ability to face the unknown with ingenuity, to rely on each other to solve the problems that the universe threw at them. The more Zarks watched, the more they began to understand. The true threat of humanity wasn't in their might. It was in their resilience, their unwavering ability to adapt to anything, to think and move as one. If humanity could apply these instincts to something greater than a children's game, then the galaxy might be in danger. Zarks stood in the mist, a strange sense of respect growing inside them. But that feeling was mixed with something else. Fear. Humanity, it seemed, was more than they appeared, and it was becoming clear that the alien leader had underestimated them in ways they could no longer ignore. The mist began to lift, but its effects lingered in Zarks' mind. What had seemed like a simple test of their adaptability had turned into something much deeper. The children, led by Liam, had navigated the challenge with a grace and unity that felt almost instinctual. It was as though they were born for this kind of environment, where the world could shift without warning, and survival depended on being able to think on one's feet. Zarks had expected chaos, a scramble for survival in the face of the unknown. But what they saw instead was a lesson in trust, in communication, in the fluidity of human thinking. The children hadn't just survived the challenge, they had mastered it. And what unsettled Zarks most was how easily they had done so. There was no panic, no disarray. There was just a quiet understanding that the game was still on, that the obstacle had become part of the challenge, not something to fear. Liam stood at the center of it all, his face shining with the same mischievous grin that Zarks had seen the first time. He was clearly proud of how the others had responded to the new challenge, but there was no arrogance in his expression. He seemed to know that the game was never really about winning. It was about outthinking the situation, adapting and overcoming. It wasn't about speed or strength. It was about who could think the quickest, react the fastest, and anticipate what others would do. Zarks, however, could not shake the feeling that something more was at play here. They had seen thousands of species, each one with its own survival strategies. Those that relied on brute strength, those that relied on technology, and those that relied on social structure. But humanity, they were different. It wasn't that they had a single defining strength. It was that they had multiple strengths that worked together in ways Zarks had never encountered. There was a psychological component to what these children were doing that had eluded every species Zarks had ever studied. It wasn't just intelligence. It wasn't just adaptability. It was a dynamic combination of traits that allowed humans to constantly evolve, to learn, to shift their strategies based on whatever new challenge appeared. Each test, whether in a game or a real-life scenario, taught them something new, and they became better for it. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the park, Zarks found themselves unable to tear their gaze away from the children. They had been watching them for days now, and the more they saw, the more they understood that the game of tag was just the surface of something much deeper. These children were learning something invaluable, not just how to win a game, but how to live, how to face an unpredictable world, and still remain in control of their fate. Zarks considered their original purpose for being on Earth. The alien leader had come to assess humanity's potential as a threat. But now, they began to question that judgment. What if humanity wasn't a threat at all? What if their greatest strength was the very thing that could turn the tide of any conflict, their ability to adapt, to think beyond the immediate, and to bring their collective intelligence to bear in the face of adversity? What if this was a species that could thrive in the most dangerous environments, not because they had the best weapons, but because they knew how to make the best use of what they had? The more Zarks observed, the more they began to fear that humanity's greatest strength was hidden in plain sight, a strength that no alien empire could easily overcome. In this game of tag, humanity had shown that they didn't need the strongest or the most advanced weapons to survive. They only needed their minds, their instincts, and the ability to think on their feet. Zarks realized then that this was no longer just about watching the children play. It was about understanding how far humanity's potential truly reached. And the alien leader was only beginning to understand that the true test of this species was not yet over. Humanity's power wasn't just in their ability to survive. It was in their ability to change the rules of the game entirely. The stakes had just risen higher, and Zarks had no idea just how deep humanity's hidden power ran. As days passed, Zarks' fascination with humanity only deepened. The alien leader had long since stopped viewing the children's game as simple play. It had become a demonstration of everything that made humans dangerous. A species capable of change, innovation, and survival. Every game they played was a lesson in evolution. Every challenge faced a step toward mastering the unpredictable world around them. But it wasn't just the children anymore that captured Zarks' attention. The more the alien leader observed, the more they realized that this ability, this almost supernatural capacity to adapt and innovate, was not confined to youth. It was everywhere. Humans of all ages, in every corner of their world, faced obstacles, and they didn't just survive. They thrived. They used their minds to think, to calculate, to outmaneuver threats both large and small. One afternoon, as Zarks watched Liam lead the group through yet another game, they felt an unsettling realization settle into their mind. This was no longer just about humanity's potential to survive on Earth. It was about their potential to survive anything. In a galaxy filled with species bent on conquest, domination, and war, humanity was different. They didn't need to conquer, to control. They just needed to survive, and with that drive, they could reshape the world. The more Zarks thought about it, the clearer the answer became. It wasn't about technology or military might or even numbers. It was about the human mind and the deep-seated instinct to adapt, to learn, to evolve in the face of every challenge. Humans were constantly redefining the rules of survival, and they did it with creativity, ingenuity, and a sense of shared purpose. Zarks realized that humanity's true strength lay not in their ability to overcome adversity individually, but in how they worked together as a collective. They were able to unite across differences, to pool their talents and skills, to form alliances and solve problems. No other species in the galaxy had exhibited this level of collective intelligence, this ability to think not just for the individual, but for the greater good. One day, Zarks decided to push the boundaries further. They had been observing humans for long enough to know that their strengths lay in adaptability, but now they wanted to test just how far that adaptability could go. With a subtle shift in the environment, Zarks introduced an unexpected element, a challenge that would force the children to rely on their instincts and trust each other even more than before. Without warning, a loud hum filled the air, followed by a sudden shaking of the ground beneath their feet. The park, once familiar and safe, began to change, the terrain now buckling and warping in strange, unpredictable ways. Structures that once stood firm were suddenly torn apart, and the sky itself seemed to darken with ominous clouds. The children froze, looking around, unsure of what was happening. Liam, his eyes wide with uncertainty, took a deep breath. He didn't speak immediately. He didn't need to. Instead, his eyes locked with those of his friends, and a silent understanding passed between them. Without a word, they moved, immediately shifting into the rhythm that had become second nature to them. "What do we do?" one of the younger children asked, a tremor in their voice. "Stick together," Liam said quietly, his tone full of confidence despite the uncertainty of the situation. "We move as a team. We trust each other, and we keep moving forward. No one gets left behind." Zarks observed closely, seeing how quickly the children formed a plan. Liam had become their anchor, their calm in the chaos. As the park continued to shake and distort around them, the children didn't scatter in fear. They stayed together, their movements synchronized, each child instinctively knowing their role. They helped each other climb over fallen debris, pulled each other out of sinking patches of earth, and adapted to the shifting landscape with practiced ease. Zarks felt a chill as they watched. These children weren't just playing a game. They were working together to survive, to solve an unknown crisis. The alien leader was forced to acknowledge the undeniable truth. Humanity didn't just face challenges. They overcame them, and in the process, they grew stronger. It was no longer a question of whether humanity could survive. The real question was whether they could be stopped. And the more Zarks observed, the more they realized that the answer was no. The chaos of the altered environment continued to escalate. The ground shook with ever-increasing intensity, and strange, unnatural winds whipped through the park, sending debris flying in every direction. The park, once a place of play and carefree laughter, had become a battlefield of survival. Yet the children, led by Liam, didn't falter. They moved through the devastation like they had rehearsed it all before, working as a unit, coordinating in the face of the unknown. Zarks stood at the edge of the turmoil, hidden from sight, watching closely. The alien leader could no longer deny it. What they were witnessing was no longer just a game. It was humanity's essence on display, a reflection of everything that made them uniquely formidable. In this moment, the children weren't just surviving. They were thriving. Every challenge was an opportunity, every unexpected turn a puzzle to be solved. The shaking ground, the shifting terrain, it was all part of the test, and they passed it with a unity that was nothing short of extraordinary. Zarks watched as Liam, ever the leader, made decisions without hesitation, his words simple but effective. "Move to the edge of the park. We can use the trees for shelter." His voice rang out clearly above the roar of the wind, and without missing a beat, the children followed his lead, scrambling toward the trees that lined the park's edge. Their movements were swift, calculated. They didn't need to discuss a strategy. They all knew what needed to be done. The alien leader was in awe. What had begun as an observation of simple games had evolved into a deeper understanding of humanity. These children, though small and seemingly powerless in comparison to the mighty forces of the universe, had proven time and again that they were capable of more than anyone had expected. And as the landscape around them continued to shift, one thing became painfully clear to Zarks. The human race was not just a species of survival. They were a species of evolution. They were capable of adapting faster than anything Zarks had ever encountered. The alien leader stepped forward, unable to contain the admiration they felt any longer. But there was something more in their heart now, a mixture of respect and fear. Humanity, Zarks realized, was a force that could not be easily contained. With their ability to adapt to any situation, to think and act as one, to survive against all odds. They had the potential to become the most powerful species in the galaxy. And this game, this simple childhood game of tag, had shown Zarks the depth of that power. As the children reached the edge of the park, they paused, forming a tight group under the cover of the trees. They were breathing heavily, their faces grim but determined. Liam, his eyes scanning the rapidly changing environment, turned to his friends and gave a small nod of approval. "We're not out of the woods yet," he said, his voice steady. "But we'll keep moving. We'll figure this out together." In that moment, Zarks knew that this wasn't just about the game. It wasn't just about the children's ability to think fast or to work as a team. It was about something much larger, their unwavering belief in the possibility of overcoming the impossible. Humans, in their essence, didn't just face challenges. They confronted them head-on, believing that no matter how difficult or dangerous the situation, they could always find a way through. And as the mist began to clear and the ground stopped shaking, Zarks realized that humanity had already won. Not just the game, but the greater war for survival. It wasn't a victory of brute strength or technological superiority. It was a victory of mind, of resilience, of adaptability. For the first time since arriving on Earth, Zarks felt a sense of reverence. The human race was more than just a species to be studied. They were a species that could change the universe itself, not with weapons or power, but with the sheer strength of their collective will to survive. Zarks turned and disappeared into the shadows, knowing that their mission had come to an end. Humanity was not a threat to the galaxy. They were the galaxy's future.